Chapter 2 Evolution with Natural Magnetism. In this book, we are interested in presenting selected and innovative ways to improve your health, healing, and happiness. It is generally accepted that the stresses of civilization are increasing to the detriment of our health, healing, and happiness. Part, if not a major preponderance, of our difficulties stems from the apparent conflict between the advancement of science in its relation to divine natural law. Here we propose a new methodology in scientific method for studying the evolution of humanity and the conscious awareness and perception of our existence. We believe that by the concerted effort to advance the understanding of natural laws, specifically magnetism, more evidence for man's existence, his past and his future, will be determined for acceptance than from the present accepted theory of evolution. We give the following facts for this hypothesis. Number 1. Magnetism has existed on the Earth at all times of recorded history of man's existence. Indications show when magnetism is present at hundreds of Gauss energy levels, as opposed to very low levels of energy, such as the Earth's present approximate half of 1 Gauss, life forms existing are radically different. Evidence is substantial that in the Earth's history, wide shifts in the magnetic pole radiations, as well as the elimination of any measurable magnetism, erases existing life forms. It seems plausible that the presence of magnetism is necessary for maintaining life forms, as well as energy level differences affecting characteristics of biological systems. Number 2. As a result of space-age explorations, it is now known that magnetism is prevalent throughout the universe, more significantly in existence and motion than formerly imagined. An outstanding discovery was the pulses appearing as electromagnetic radiation from the planet Jupiter, ranging from X-rays to visible light and radio waves, generated by fast-spinning magnetic fields flooding the solar system with radiation, and it is now suggested by Russian astronomers L.M. Osurnoy and V.V. Yusov, New Scientist, 12th May 1977, page 331. That quasars, distant celestial objects that resemble stars but emit unusually bright blue and ultraviolet light and powerful radio waves, may be giant magnets. Revolving on its axis, the Sun emits electrified particles which shower the Earth's atmosphere at speeds of 400 to 600 miles a second, and which are drawn to the magnetic poles, assisting the distribution of magnetism throughout the Earth's environment. It is well known that the electromagnetic radiation bombards our planet from outer space. Number 3. Through scientific method, magnetism has been shown to exist in 2 separate energy forms, described as negative and positive, which are similar to negative and positive energy forms apparently existing in all biological systems on this Earth. Number 4. It is known that external energy forms of magnetism will affect the internal energy forms of biological systems when programmed correctly. Negative magnetism will arrest disease and infection, and positive magnetism will strengthen life forms. The increased understandings of magnetism published by the authors indicate that these separate and distinct natural energies of nature operate as if they have intelligence. Number 5. The predominant factor in man's existence, and has been historically, in the present and evidently in the future, is the development of man's brain and his nervous system, his conscious awareness and perception of his being and his environment. Magnetism, applied separately and distinctively, with known procedures and control factors, will increase the left and right hemisphere abilities of the brain, individually and collectively. Life processes can be speeded up or slowed down. Nervous system structures and performances can be dulled or stimulated. For the apparently healthy system, or the ill, the biological system will indicate its own built-in rejection or acceptance of the separate and distinct natural energy forms of magnetism. Number 6. Energy is life in motion. It can change form, but, to our present knowledge, cannot be destroyed. Magnetism exists in all energy forms discovered by mankind and cannot be destroyed, although it can change its form or location. The increased knowledge of magnetism and the new discoveries of the separate and distinct energies, consistently verified with scientific methods by independent researchers, show a vast, unimaginable scope of technology now in present use and planned for future generations, resting on an unsound basis of natural law. This artificial programming away from nature can only be described, if not changed and implemented, in accordance with natural law, as some form of mad genius that could inevitably lead civilization into an artificially mechanized society from man's natural creation and being. It is imperative that more emphasis be placed in man's evolution on the importance of magnetism in natural living. Since a definition of natural would be that which is produced or existing in nature, not artificial or manufactured. No better example is more obvious than human beings, man, woman, and child. When we extend this concept to earth, fire, water, air, and lower animal species, acceptance is not difficult. As we have progressed in our discoveries of nature, multi-thousands of parts and segments, including elements, have been named and applied to our lives. Sciences have been founded and developed, and philosophies have been born to determine the correlation of human beings with that which nature has revealed. And yet, in all our knowledge, we are still as little children, groping in the darkness for truths of our existence and the ways and means of nature. What is artificial and what is not? What is natural life? The development of our societies has become so vast and complicated that answers to these questions confuse and befuddle. We have doubts that in our civilization a natural way of living could be obtained, or if it is really wise to even attempt such a style of living. It is clear in our societies that in living a totally natural lifestyle, as we may understand such a means to be, many obstacles we have constructed in civilization for our daily living interfere and, in fact, threaten our physical existence in society. It has been said many times in many ways that the greatest thoughts, indeed the greatest answers to our existence and meaning, cannot be put in the symbols of words and language. Understanding can be more important than words and symbols. Science professes to be truth, real, not artificial, described, written, conversed with symbols of letters and speech civilization has devised. Why not symbols for understanding nature? Can we say that symbols as revealed are not natural? We have a paradox incapable of adequate explanation, yet we have to accept symbols for our daily living. That does not mean we have to believe in these symbols. We may know within ourselves a better understanding of our conscience, more conducive to health, healing, and happiness. In the limited knowledge thus far revealed to man, the symbols used, the words and speech expressed, the communication of logic, theory, formulae, product, and a way of living, man still grasps like a little child, in darkness looking for the light. Intuitive belief and scientific method, whether singular or together, we have accepted as producing advancements in societies. Are science and natural life incompatible? If we agree this is true, then are we not saying that science and God are separate areas that do not come together? How can a scientist then believe in God? Science says that man evolved from the natural selection of species. Is this really a conflict with creativity of the species initiated and inspired by a divine power? Let us look at the accepted scientific view of man's evolutionary progress through natural selection. Does this acceptance stand on its own analysis of scientific method? Or is science in this matter just another human activity, standing for truth, but perhaps more speculative than its counterpart, intuitive belief? We are frankly instructed that man has come from apes. No rationalization can ignore this basic science acceptance. We have therefore evolved from a simple life form in the seas to ape-like creatures that have evolved to man. Thus, man was not created in God's image. This has all happened by mutation. And how does mutation occur? Remember, we are discussing scientific method accepted by the scientific community as a basis for advancing the importance of science to mankind. Science says that mutations occur by, quote, radioactivity in the environment, cosmic rays from space, or randomly by the organism itself. Accidentally useful mutations provide the working material for biological evolution, which to some extent is controlled by natural selection. Carl Sagan, The Dragons of Eden, Random House, Inc., New York, 1977. This basis that is used for relating human evolution to reptilian and mammalian ancestors is not scientific method. Science knows little about radioactivity and cosmic rays, and in fact has only taken these areas into serious consideration within the last 30 years. In fact, it was only in 1967 that pulsars were discovered in space, which stimulated study over the entire range of the electromagnetic spectrum, and quote, random and quote, accidental, do not make for scientific scrutiny, since there must be consistency in the scientific method. In fact, such basis seems more theoretical and speculative than areas of ESP and psychic phenomena condemned by many scientists. Natural selection and the evolution of man from lower animal forms have not been scientifically proved by the scientists' own rules of measurement and are thus rightly entitled, quote, theory of evolution. In the little more than 100 years of this theory, studies in the evolution of species is certainly worthwhile, as are research findings on the mutations in the eggs and sperm cells that determine sexual reproduction. Yet, where is the scientific method for cause and effect? Today, a reason for these biological changes within the biological system is different from a few years ago. Can we doubt a new hypothesis will not be offered tomorrow? We assume too much in our egotism to bring about the quote, truth, by accepting a basis not subject to consistency to further assume more quote, facts. If the basis is false, then the structure built upon that basis is incorrect, regardless of the symbols used to explain these new discoveries. And we can design new instruments that work on our new facts, but these instruments are later shown not to be designed to correctly determine what exists, works, or is within a part, according to still new discoveries. We are constantly discovering that our scientific facts need new explanations, new insights. In actuality, we were not correct in our understanding of these facts. We build mathematical formulae and then experiment with products of energy explosions, for example, involving the basic energy of magnetism, yet not knowing that magnetism has two separate and distinct energies, and perhaps even more divisible entities. Still, the artificial monsters built do work for the purposes intended. That does not mean we understand the workings, including the detriments to biological life, especially when it is now clearly obvious by scientific method that there was more to these, quote, natural energies than we realized. More scientists, in ever-increasing numbers, are speaking out on their belief in creation and in a divine intelligence that initiated and now directs our natural existence. It is a fallacy that scientists do not believe in God. A real scientist has no choice but to believe in a divine supreme intelligence. Einstein, as have many great scientists, expressed this opinion. If you could take a poll of all the scientists in the United States, it is the author's view that a decided majority would voice this opinion, and it would be voiced as a belief, not just mere opinion. The belief would be shown on faith, and it would also be based on knowledge of our natural existence from accumulated facts of natural laws. Quote, "A growing body of opinion is rejecting Darwin's theory of evolution in favour of the creation theory," said Professor Edgar Andrews, Department of Material Science, London University. It is commonly supposed that Charles Darwin made the statement that man was descended from the apes, but Darwin only hinted at this in his Origin of the Species, 1859, in his later book, The Descent of Man, 1871, and from scientists such as Huxley, E. Hegel, and E. Dubois. The Darwinian concept now generally embodies man descended from the apes, although some educators place more emphasis on, quote, common origin, as opposed to, quote, descent of man. Anthropologists like Richard Leakey, as well as scientists in the research laboratories, are finding more increasing difficulties with the Darwinian theory of evolution. Still, textbooks, science publications, and national magazines continue to depict, and often graphically, the evolution of ape species to the present-day man. General views on man's difference from the ape is especially noted in his brain size, his skeletal and muscular facilities for walking, and in the structure of his jaws and teeth. Also, man possesses speech, has the ability to make complicated structures, and has more complex social organizations. More refined differences occur in the metabolic makeup. The biochemistry of man and ape are totally different. If man descended from the apes, perhaps his glandular fluids and those of the apes should be similar, and man then would not have to go to the monkey to remove serum to make the Salk vaccine for man. You cannot have two species existing together at the same time when one supposedly has evolved from the other. The ape would not be here today if man evolved from the ape, unless man was an ape. The geological discoveries in Eastern Africa of ancient man similar to our own beings in the same fossil sites as ape species from which we are supposed to have evolved indicates we have no scientific accuracy of human evolution. If scientists have nothing better to do than to try to prove man came from the ape, then the colleges and universities that proliferate this doctrine as fact should be closed as a menace to society and as destroying man's inborn belief in God and what is morally right and wrong. This is a principal reason why younger people today are turning from belief in the Creator, but, to be fair, we also have to say that this is a principal reason why increasing numbers of young people are rebelling and refusing to become slaves of an overburdened bureaucracy bordering on socialism. And socialism is the father of fascism and communism, where the state becomes the all-powerful ruler within a system that does not allow God to exist, in a diabolical plan to enslave the masses. Why should man concern himself with his behaviour on this earth if man comes from the apes and there is no God? The symbol, science, means knowledge, and there can be no science when the knowledge of that science is false. Intuitively, or by scientific method, the theory of evolution is only a theory, and a very bad theory. It's like the 7 blind men describing an elephant. One man grabs the elephant's tail and says, quote, "It is a long, snake-like creature." The second man puts his arm around a leg of the elephant and says, quote, "It is like a tree and has a great big trunk." The third man holds the trunk, saying, quote, "It's a big snake moving up and down with a hole in it." The fourth man, holding an ear, says, quote, "It's a great big leaf, I can feel it, and it's wide, big and floppy." The fifth man, on the side of the elephant, says, quote, "No, you're all wrong. This is a big flexible wall that gives when I push in." The sixth man gets down on the ground, grabs a hold of a hoof, saying, quote, "No, it's a log standing on the ground, and I can even feel the roots." And the seventh man reaches up, finds an eye, and says, It's a big ball, and it moves." From its inception, Darwin's theory of evolution was too hastily accepted in science, ignoring existing studies, scientifically disproving the theory. Actually, the theory of evolution was discussed in ancient Greece. Anne Lamarck, 1744 to 1829, believed characteristics were transferred by heredity. What Darwin added to the theory was an explanation of natural selection. Sir Charles Lyell, British geologist, in 1858, 1 year before Darwin's Origin of the Species, found in Brixham Cave evidence of early man coinciding with his supposed ancestors, as had Sir Henry T. de la Becce in 1832 reported in his Geological Manual. Darwin insisted as the basis of his theory, quote, "The principle of slow but steady change in one direction, from one age to another, from one aeon to another. Favourable varieties would tend to be preserved, and unfavourable ones destroyed." Immanuel Velikovsky, Earth in Upheaval. Doubleday, 1955. And if Professor Velikovsky's views are correct on catastrophes on the Earth, including a gigantic catastrophe less than 6,000 years ago, this would be the last dying of natural selection and survival of the fittest. The present scientific acceptance of man's presence on Earth is considered 3.3 to 3.8 million years, with possibility arguments as long as 250 million years. Darwin admitted he could not explain the disappearance of horses in pre-Columbian America, nor the extinction of the mammoth, an animal with every favourable condition for propagation. Science has, quote, given up on Darwin's theory of evolution, although some die-hard scientists cling to their indoctrination. Quote, our ultimate explanation of evolutionary change may well come from studies of correlated environmental and hereditary changes. Van Nostrand's Scientific Encyclopedia, 4th edition, 1968. That characteristics of biological life can be transferred genetically from generation to generation is not disputed. Although genetics is still a young scientific discipline, Abbe Gregor Mendel, 1822 to 1884, discoveries in this area of understanding have been rapid and increasing within the last few years. The prevalent mystery, as well as concern, is the influence of the environment on man and biological species. It has become more apparent that man, in the use of his own free will, can upset the radiological and environmental influences, mutating his evolution from a natural course. This belief has become a clear and present danger. It is known that chemicals and drugs can horribly mutate human beings, that radiation overdoses can kill and maim. It is not given to be accepted scientific knowledge how environmental radiations function in causing genetic changes, nor if such effects can be witnessed in 1 or 2 generations, a period of time for personal observation. In submitting our hypothesis on the effects of natural magnetism on biological systems and evolution, we are not suggesting a final solution, since we realize, although our research has gone further into this field of science than perhaps other scientists, that much still has to be understood about natural magnetism. In our laboratories, we had 3-foot chickens that became meat eaters and had to be destroyed, rats that acted as if they were cats, cats that behaved as rats, and dangerous snakes that became as harmless as butterflies. We induced these changes by carefully selected fields of magnetism in our research knowledge of the separate and distinct natural energies of magnetism. We have applied our findings on the natural separate energies of magnetism into as many areas of science as time and our energy permit in our research. And as our own worst critics, we find no understandable application that does not follow a balance of natural law, unless man himself uses his knowledge to upset that balance. There are dangers in our hypothesis. As in all discoveries of natural laws, since man has not learned to live peacefully with his fellow man, enjoying the fruits of his discoveries, we submit our hypothesis in the spirit of science with the belief that the secrets of nature belong to God, but that which is revealed belongs to all. We look to God's providence that the increased interest and development of the separate and distinct natural energies of magnetism will be utilized for peace, order, and harmony, and not through man's selfishness and ignorance hasten his extinction on this earth in his violation of natural laws. In our belief that science has, quote, given up on Darwin's theory of evolution, it is encouraging to discover that the prestigious and authoritative Van Nostrand's Scientific Encyclopedia, 5th edition, 1976, does not mention Darwin or his book, Origin of the Species, under the subsection of evolution. The earlier edition, published in 1968, not only mentioned Darwin and the book that established his theory, but most of the descriptive material in explaining evolution was presented as backup material supporting the theory. Instead, the new edition is quite determined to ignore Darwin. There is, instead, discussion on the age of the Earth in evolution, the importance of amino acids and fossils in evolution, and this section concludes with the following statement on page 989, quote, "The principal, reasonably well understood means for causing genetic changes are mutants. Mutations are genetic changes which occur suddenly and are thereafter heritable. Mutations arise through three general mechanisms. 1. Chemical modification of performed DNA, such as breakage and aberrant reunion of molecules, or the changes elicited by ultraviolet light, for example. 2. Errors in incorporation of the purine and pyridine bases, or additions and subtractions of bases during DNA replication. And 3. Unequal exchange between two identical or similar DNA molecules. Unequal crossing over during recombination. These chemical changes normally occur with low frequency, spontaneous mutations, but the frequency can be increased by means of various chemical and physical treatments, induced mutations. Even when so induced, the frequency of bacterial mutants for a particular trail, for example, is low, e.g., one mutant in 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 10 bacteria. Thus, any biological evolutionary alterations brought about by the mechanisms of mutation would appear to represent a very slow pathway. This statement should be read carefully, analysed in word usage. Reference to quote errors in and quote unequal exchange and quote would appear to are used in relation to existing accepted scientific maxims, and do not consider the findings of magnetism's separate energies upon cells and molecules that perform them with mathematical exactness when properly utilized. Our previous publications, Magnetism and its Effects on the Living System, Exposition Press 1974, and The Magnetic Effect, Exposition Press 1975, and US patent number 3,947,533 and US patent number 4,020,590 show the findings that are results from the base genetic changes in cells and molecules. Further evidence will be shown in patent pending entitled Method of Treating Abnormal Cardiovascular Conditions Using Unipolar Magnetic Fields, and patent pending entitled Method of Using Magnetic Fields to Conduct a Constraining Diagnostic Examination. We additionally submit at this time several interesting characteristics. 1. Although each kind of gene is different from every other gene in its DNA sequence, the primary genetic material for all living systems, we find a remarkable similarity in the helical, spiral, double-stranded structure of DNA to the joining of negative and positive magnetism in the design of a figure 8. Number 2. Considering the above significance, we point out that the forming of the zygote cells in the human embryo is also in the design of the figure 8, similar to the joining of the basic natural energies of magnetism. Number 3. As the DNA contains the basic genetic material to position specific amino acids into sequence for chemical interaction and development, Amino acids are the building blocks of all biological life. We notice the relation of amino acids in their motion of energy relative to negative and positive natural magnetism. Amino acids spin to the left during life, and after death spin to the right. Negative magnetic energy spins to the left and will assist amino acids in offsetting disease and increasing alkalines, whereas positive natural magnetism spins to the right, assisting acidity. In this publication, as in previous publications, we have insisted that our findings show the more important energy in sustaining life forms is negative energy, which shows its energy in matter by counter-clockwise spin, similar to negative natural magnetism. Number 4. Quote, changes elicited by ultraviolet light are in the known spectrum of electromagnetic energies, as are infrared or heat rays, solar rays, X-rays, gamma rays, and cosmic rays, all showing significance in the alteration of genetic structures. We further submit that limitation of the electromagnetic spectrum does not align with other accepted scientific maxims, including the primary maxim that atoms act as if they were magnets. If this maxim is correct, and we believe more credence is supported by a proper understanding of magnetism's separate and distinct natural energies, how can any form of energy composed of parts we call atoms not be electromagnetic? Number 5. That electricity and magnetism exist together, we do not dispute. We do dispute and believe our research findings indicate that magnetic flux or fields is not secondary to electricity. Indeed, magnetism is a basic energy, in and of itself divisible into entities, and will, we believe, be verified as more basic to man's existence and being than the energy of electricity. Number 6. Mutations can be favourable or unfavourable. They can be induced by chemicals, high or low temperatures, radiation, adequately exampled by the atomic bomb, and cosmic radiation. The importance of cosmic rays in our quote environment has played a significant role in the past history of animal evolution, and no doubt to human evolution. In the explosion that is death to a distant star, high energy particles of cosmic rays are thrown billions of miles into space. Cosmic rays, similar to radioactivity, can disrupt the protective layers around the Earth, allowing more ultraviolet rays from the Sun. This could affect genetic changes and cause mutations. Cosmic rays entering the atmosphere give rise to various interactions. One example is the formation of radiocarbon found in all living matter. Radiocarbon combines with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. Vegetable matter absorbs carbon dioxide containing radiocarbons. Animals absorb radiocarbons. When plants and animals' living matter die, the radiocarbon reverts to nitrogen. A continual cycle of peace and order in the harmony of nature, where the seemingly basic energy is the two separate and distinct natural energies of magnetism. To be more specific, cell mutation occurs when the negative voltage drops on a healthy cell and the cell mutates or proliferates out of control. Cancer cells are examples of mutants. When the negative magnetic energy of a healthy cell drops on the cell surface and is not reinforced by nature's radiation and environmental interactions, or by the living system's own balance of natural energies, the surface bonding of the weak cell allows mobility to invade other normal cells. Our research with magnetism on normal and abnormal cell interactions, previously published, we find to be similar to the published work of Dr. Clarence D. Cohn, Jr., wherein Dr. Cohn's research was limited to the electrical studies of cell division, control of cell division by the electrical voltage of the surface membrane. American Cancer Society, San Antonio, Texas, March 1970. Recently, there has been some discussion in the scientific community concerning gravity as the maker of planets. This carries the implication that gravity is more basic to our understanding the universe than understanding magnetism. These discussions about gravity do not tell us what gravity is, nor from what source it comes. We refer the proponents of gravity versus magnetism to the following response, based on laws of physics verified independently from our research and, in fact, in world publication. Number 1. The North Pole energy of magnetism draws and attracts, as a volcano-shaped funnel, whether the materials attracted are fluids, gases, particles, or as large as oceans, and, it would seem, following this law of physics, to still larger masses. 2. Anything having a counterclockwise vortex spin is going to attract to it, whether magnet or other source of energy spin in nature. This will apply to particles in space, and as particles are collected, the mass is increased. Mass is negative and attracts other positive charges, and after billions of years a planet will be formed. Number 4. As a planet comes into being, an energy field is created around this planet, such as Earth, and the planet becomes as a magnet as is Earth. Number 5. The size of the planet equals the square of the mass, which is equal to the gravity. Number 6. As the mass attracts continually, the energy field created around the mass, protective layers and forms of energy are also created. We call these layers on Earth by different names, such as ionosphere, layer A, B, and so on. Each protective layer is separated in distance, one from the other, all created and resulting from the magnetism of the mass. Number 7. As protective levels develop, this allows life to function on the mass, such as on Earth. On a mass such as the Moon, life as we know it cannot function due to the weak magnetism in that mass and its lack of protective shielding. The Moon is often referred to as a dead planet. If the Moon could develop protective shielding by increasing its magnetism, then life could flourish on the Moon. Number 8. Once protective shielding is developed around a mass, this allows clouds and atmospheric gases to form. Once you have clouds, you attract oxygen and hydrogen to make water available in developing life systems. We would conclude that gravity is dependent on magnetism. The difficulty in properly assessing the importance of magnetism to genetic and environmental evolution still is apparent in the reluctance of the scientific community to understand that magnetism is two separate and distinct energies. Without this understanding and proper application of the separate energy desired for the prescribed function, there can be no repetition of results required for verification. This is evident in the classic modern works in magnetism of Dr. A.S. Pressman, Electromagnetic Fields and Life, Plenum Press, New York, 1970, and Professor Madeline F. Barnethy, Biological Effects of Magnetic Fields, Volume 2, Plenum Press, 1969. Although these research publications, as many publications on magnetism thereafter as well as authors before Pressman and Barnethy, showed to the scrutinizing scientist that magnetism does affect living systems, Many areas of the scientific community remain ignorant or refuse to believe this important concept. With the discovery of separate energies of magnetism, where experiments can now be scientifically reproduced with mathematical exactness, utilizing the required separate energy, magnetism will take its proper place in the structure of matter's basic energies. The hypothesis in this chapter is submitted in this hopeful acceleration for the better understanding of man, his genetic and environmental evolution.